Hey. Hey. Not funny.
We've been told that we should be doing video so you can see our faces. I don't see how this is a good idea in any way, shape, or form. But we've been told by an expert in marketing that people want to see your face. So we're doing it. We're showing our faces.
It reminds me of I have a good friend, Walter Sabo, who is a fairly well-known name in the radio industry and who's a student of radio. And he said that the transition from radio to TV was perhaps even more traumatic than the transition from silent movies to talkies, because you had people on radio who were massive stars that millions of people tuned into. And then when people actually saw what they looked like, that was the end of their audience.
Like, you're kidding me.
This is the guy
with that face?
That guy?
I know.
I think he mentioned that somebody, when he appeared on TV, people saw they looked like an 8-year-old drunk, which is what in fact he was. So therefore, that's I think that's the fate that awaits us if we make. The only difference is we have no listeners to begin with.
I know. Why are we even worried about any of this? Because,
why are we even worried?
Zero consequences.
The good thing though is, Jim, is that sometimes we do things where it'd be nice if we could hold up a picture of something. I mean, sometimes
that's true.
It's nice, but that may not be worth it, because there is a certain magic to radio. I mean, Joe Frank wouldn't have worked nearly as well if there were videos associated with it. I never wanted to know
what Joe Frank looked like. I always pictured a guy wearing mostly brown, smoking a lot of Kent cigarettes.
Yeah.
What did you picture?
He actually looks a lot like what I pictured, except he's actually from, I think, Alsace, the Alsace-Lorraine region. It's and I think he was born there, and for whatever reason the family relocated to New Jersey or something. I don't know the full story. He's dark and brooding.
So his name probably means, to the Germans, it probably means somebody from France, and to the French, it probably means somebody from Germany. Yeah.
So, but he looked like a cellar dweller. He looked exactly like what he should look. He looked like he had that Jack Kerouac look. Like he's down in the studio at 2 a.m.
Yeah. He never leaves. The matted hair.
Which is exactly from what I understand, people were really exasperated with him. Like he would stay forever and just constantly tweak with stuff. Anyway, we digress. But I agree with you. This is a decision fraught, but that's why it's good to do experiments and test it out and see what's going on.
Well, one good thing we'll be able to do, if this works, is make little video teasers. So I could make a video teaser and put that out on the social media, on your huge social media following, by the way.
Mine?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You have no social media. You're not on social media whatsoever.
Sorry, I turned the piece of paper upside down.
I have a what?
That's a 0. Oh, sorry. I thought that was an 8. That's 2 zeros. Oh, okay.
I was looking at it upside down. All right. Well, let's check these files, and if this works, we'll just continue it.
Okay.
Back here in a minute.
Okay.
So we previewed what we just did, the 5 minutes and 3 minutes to open. It looks all right, I think. It looks all right. There'll be video. There'll also be our regular audio for this podcast, because obviously, if you're listening in Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, it's not, when you're listening in the car, probably where most people listen, there's no point in adding video to the podcast. So you'll have to see it on YouTube. If you want to go to YouTube, you'll be able to see us recording this with video.
Well, but let's say people are listening via a podcast service. Do we have to create a separate version which is audio only for the podcast services?
Yeah, I'll do my regular audio mix, and then I'll take the video and if I can compress the audio, fine. But I don't, I'm using like either CapCut or, well, iMovie. I'm not working with Adobe Premiere.
Okay.
You were saying you can do this in Ableton Live, and I don't, which I don't have. I have Logic.
Okay.
I don't know if I can do video in Logic. Maybe there's a plugin.
Well, I think it's another conversation, another time.
Yeah, I mean, the tricky thing is like getting it all to sync up, doing all the edits at once, and having the same audio. I think they're different animals.
I think we should do what our esteemed marketing coordinator told us at the Recess Cafe. We should find some student at Syracuse University who, at the age of 15, knew more about this stuff than you and I will ever know. But they won't know the things that you know. I bet you they don't know a lot about compression. Yeah, compression ratios, baby. Yeah,
it's a different tool set. Somebody's working at a TV station understands limiter and compression and EQ. So that's mostly what's going on in the mix as I do it. And then Brian Dozier listened to it and said, because you're compressing everything so much, all the sibilants in the high end are just, going through the roof.
Good.
So everything before season 3, it was like just the S's would like blow your brains out. So like a drill. Of course, I'm deaf in that region, so it doesn't really matter.
Our job here is done. I like that. I like it when it's like we're speaking through a tone, a tube screamer.
Yeah, and I want you to be able to hear that limiter, that compression and limiter kind of wobble,
the pumping
strain under the load. I love that. And then I'm notching out in EQ.
See the tubes glow a little too hard.
Yeah, that's how you know it's really working. The magic is happening.
That's when the tubes start smoking.
So speaking of magic, I'm doing. You asked me how I'm doing when we were off the air, and I'm doing fine. It's very funny, very simple, and very. I find these little hacks now that I'm old really make me happy. Like I find little hacks, life hacks that just makes something work a little better. And sometimes I find that I'm not being productive, and I had to analyze why am I not being productive. And the reason I'm not being productive is I've got a lot of things to do.
You hate your job.
It's because you really should be doing it. No, I actually do like my job. But I have a ton of different things to do for a bunch of different people. And I've tried every to-do list app out there, task lists, all kinds of computer things and phone things. And I finally figured out how to get things done. And let me show you. This new device that I'm using.
It's to do them.
And I've got video, so I can show you how it works. It's a piece of goddamn paper. And here's the kicker. This is the thing that really makes it work.
Yeah.
A pen. I write down what the hell I need to get done. This is just today. And then I cross it off when I've done it. Yeah. I haven't done everything today, but I've done a whole godless damn bunch of it.
But the good thing is you can take the pen and the piece of paper and put it on the bed by your table. So when you wake up at 2:30 in the morning saying, holy shit, I forgot I got to do blah, blah, blah. I got to do it first thing in the morning. You write it down on the piece of paper and you sleep the sleep of the innocent.
There is something, though, about it's like switching between digital and analog that engages some part of your brain that just makes it more satisfying. And it is not exhausting. There are times during the day where it's exhausting to look at the screen.
Yes.
It's not exhausting to look at that piece of paper. And then you find something on that piece of paper and you're like, I can do that. And then you just friggin' do it.
Right.
And then you take a break. And then you look at the paper again. You're like, I'll probably do that. So much. It's so different than pulling up your task list. I don't know exactly why. I know if I thought about it, I could figure out why. But that's made me happy. So I'm sort of happy about that today. I probably look unhappy because I'm trying to grow a beard and it's really aggravating my skin. And I think I'm now pretty much recovered from our traumatic bike trip in upstate New York. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine. I got sick shortly thereafter. I've been
did?
like hacking and sneezing. I sound probably very stuffed up right now. I sound kind of stuffed up all the time, but I'm especially stuffed up now. But
I was sneezing and like sinus problems while I was there. Then I came back to Massachusetts and nothing. So I wonder if it's like some kind of weird.
There's something going on. There's something going on in the area, but I was also sick.
Oh, no.
With whatever, just beer, whatever. You just power through it.
Beer.
Yeah, just drink beer and chain yourself to your desk. But no, the interesting thing, I mean, honestly, COVID-19 was a huge experiment, and we are the lab rats. And if I learned anything, it's that sitting behind it's not a good daily routine to walk the 8 feet from your bed to your desk and sit at your desk for 10 hours and do work, and then go downstairs and eat something and come back up and go to bed. It's like,
oh yeah,
the whole commute thing was an environmental war crime.
Right.
But there's something to be said for there has to be transitions between periods in life. It's really good if you can walk or bike or go somewhere else for your workday. You need those scene changes during the day because you really can't do anything for more than my feeling is that 90 minutes is the absolute max you can do anything continuously.
Like in a concentrated way.
Not even concentrate, just anything. Like if you sit at a meeting, if the meeting hour is the max, 90 minutes is absolutely a disaster. Human beings can't focus on anything for more than like 90 minutes max.
Well, interesting. So, but if you're in the movie theater, you can totally watch a 2-hour movie if it's really entertaining. But I think the limit is somewhere in there for work, for like focus, like hard focus. You've got a limited amount of time, and then we kid ourselves and we think we can hard focus for 10 hours straight. You just don't think you can.
No.
First of all, it takes a lot of energy. The brain is a big energy hog. It's a big calorie hog. So you're going to need to be eating if you're going to do that. But you're going to be taking breaks. Your brain has got to like refocus somewhere else, take a break. And ideally you need to get outside or like move your body.
Yeah. And I saw this interview with Obama. People made fun of Obama because he had all these black suits. Mm-hmm. He had the exact same suit. He wore this basically. He had multiple versions of the same suit, but he basically had the same identical suit, like 20 different copies of it.
And one tan suit, because we saw that. That was everybody lost their minds. He wore a tan suit once, and everybody lost. Because
they probably pissed him off by talking about why do you always wear the black suit? Right. And they asked him, they said, why is that? He says, you quickly learn that making decisions is work.
Yeah.
And you can only make so many decisions in a day. Yeah. And he says, and strangely enough, making the decision about which suit to wear consumes about as much energy as making the decision about whether you're going to like join NATO or something like that. Yeah. So he says, you only get like 75 decisions a day before you basically stroke out. So he said, I can't waste time making decisions about things that are unimportant. So I just got the same suit 100 times over, and I just grab whatever suit's on the rack.
Similar story. I can't remember who it was. It was one of my songwriter friends. Got to hang out with Bruce Springsteen before a show. So they were hanging out during the day, and they went back to the hotel where Bruce was staying, whatever the biggest, hotel room in the hotel. And Bruce was, talking, and it was getting closer to when he had to like get back to the stage. And he was like, what should I wear tonight? And he opened the closet in the hotel, and there was like a dozen identical pairs of white T-shirts and Levi's blue jeans.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Bruce has a uniform. He puts on his uniform to perform. That is an energy saving.
It's an energy saving
choice, right? So he never chooses. He just picks one of them. They're probably all completely identical. I don't know why he had multiple copies of the
Bruce
thing in his
uniform.
The Bruce
Right.
uniform.
You need a scene change.
Yeah.
Like, remember the time we did this show and you didn't play the intro music?
Yeah.
And it felt weird. It's like,
That's
it's kind of weird. It's like you see like the Romans built these arches. It's like, why didn't you build a freaking entire building? Why is it just an arch? Why can't you build the whole building? It's like, no, because there's something special about the arch. You don't need an entire building. You just need the minimum thing, which is which indicates a transition from one state to another, and it changes your perception of reality. This is very deep. He says, holding up his hand and pointing.
Like this. It's
like
deep.
this. It's deep. But it's very, very interesting. Like the morning commute, which I hate. The drive,
But it serves
I
a
hate.
purpose, right? I mean, what you're saying is there's a ritual to it that...
You square yourself away.
Yeah, it's better also, though, that it's always better not to get in a car.
Right. But taking a shower, putting on the clothes, and saying goodbye to the house.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Even if you come back to the house, well, like I was saying on our bike trip, that I knew this couple that worked together. They did animatronics for advertising agencies, basically mock-ups, like animated mock-ups of ads before they started filming. And they would get a lot of work from the ad agencies. They'd do all their work in their apartment. But in the morning, they would go out. They lived in Greenwich Village. They would go out in Greenwich Village. They'd go to their favorite diner. They'd have their regular breakfast at the diner. They'd take a walk. Then they'd walk to the office, which was their apartment. They had to leave the apartment first thing in the morning and come back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, their day didn't start.
Right.
I wish there was a pause button. There's no pause button. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. I'm right here. Yeah, it is strange. Do we need to...
There's a place I can add a marker. But I'm not really sure what that
blur
means.
out logos? Should I drink off camera?
No.
Yeah, I'll get a glass next time.
It's not a problem unless we have advertisers. No, I'm fine.
Sorry, you were saying we don't have listeners.
And my lighting is now suddenly terrible. I'm going to need to get better lighting.
Well, let's make sure we really want to go down this path because already complications have arisen.
So we were talking about a Roman arch and
changing, we have seen changes in your life.
Yeah.
And you step out of one, and it can be very minimal. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be a grand ceremony, just something very liminal. You cross over the threshold and you're in a different thing. And I think that's why I've talked to you about this, about how I think it's really important. If I could afford it, I was thinking about renting an office downtown in Syracuse. Right. Just to get out of the house. I think it's very, very dangerous to be bound to the house for too long. And to work where you eat, where you sleep, where you bathe. I think it's a bad idea.
What did you find in Syracuse for rent? Anything good for?
I found an office for $400 a month.
That's very good.
It's pretty good, but it's something I don't need to spend, and it's a lot of money. $400 a month is a chunk of change.
Yeah.
I should probably try it for a couple of months, maybe try it for 6 months and see how it goes. Maybe I should do that anyway.
Yeah, you're talking about it.
What?
You're talking. Well, how's the Wi-Fi there? I mean, is there a window? Is it cheerful?
It's like a office sharing space. It's like a WeWork, but it's not a WeWork. And they have a variety of options. Like you can just come by and sit on the couches, and they've got the coffee bar and things like that. But they do have an option where you can reserve an office for $400 a month.
I see. So that office is basically yours.
Yeah.
And the good news is you could stop at any time.
And I could stock it with my monitors. That's the key thing. I mean, I have 3 monitors here.
Yeah.
And so I need a lot of real estate to work with.
Right.
So yeah, that's actually, I'm glad you reminded me about that, because
It might be worth it, though. I mean, yeah, I know it's an extra expense, and there's a lot of expenses, but
well, the good news is that we're almost upon the presidential election, and when the election is done, when we get to the election, I can like throttle back my my campaign contributions, and then at
You're
that
the
point,
one.
I'm the one.
You're holding it all together.
I'm the one who's funding the giant rise in political contributions. Yeah, me and a bazillion other people. I tell you one thing: the great thing is that the political parties make NPR look like aristocrats, because they're just shameless.
Oh.
We need $5 before 4:00 today to make a FEC deadline. Yeah. It's like, no, you come on, seriously.
I'm in the tub. I'm about to slit my wrist. Can't you throw in $10 right now? It'll be matched. It'll be matched by all the non-suicidal people. 1,200%.
We'll shoot this dog unless you give us $5. Really, they're shameless.
Jim,
they're
I'm crying.
shameless.
I'm crying right now.
I know, and you're just like, I'm giving money to these chuckleheads. My God,
I do. I've made donations in a few different races. I'm not like I know that if I think that I'm going to do postcards or knocking on doors, it's not going to happen. So I throw money because got to do something.
That's what we can do.
Otherwise, just can't. You can't sleep.
Right, you got to do something. And I'm like, one day I was just like, what can I do? What can I do? I'm like, oh, money. I've got that.
Yeah. Well, that's right. So you're after that, you'll free up. You won't have your $1,400 a month habit of political donations.
Political donations.
I think if you had an office, you'd be much happier. Actually, I know you would, because to downtown from where you are, awesome bike ride, and you'll have a change of scenery like twice a day.
I'm not going to bike downtown. That ain't happening. If our biking to
we biked 60 and 80 miles.
Yeah, but to bike downtown, you got to deal with all the freakazoids in downtown Syracuse. There's a lot more cars, dude. We biked on like that.
We're like, it was all in the nice.
I love that video. That video is actually quite fascinating. Wheel.
Oh, so what are we talking about? The song "Wheel." I created a video. Very simple. Okay, so Lionel and I, let's set this up. Lionel and I are biking along the New York State, the Empire State Trail.
Right.
I think it's either the Empire Trail or the Empire State Trail. I see it listed two different ways. We were on it. I think it was just called the Empire Trail. Anyway, it follows the Mohawk River and follows the Erie Canal, and it's pretty flat, and it's really long and really uninterrupted. And we started on a Friday morning, and there was nobody on that trail. Nobody.
I mean,
nobody.
We biked 40 miles, and we met maybe 10 people in 40 miles. Max.
Yeah, if that.
But the more important thing is that there's no signs.
Mm-hmm.
There's no merch. There's nobody selling. I mean, it is a path through the woods.
Yeah, and
a beautiful path.
Very few road. You don't cross any roads, hardly any roads compared to almost all the other bike paths I've been on. You're really just going like a quarter mile, and then you cross the road a quarter mile. It breaks it up. This path, at least this, from Schenectady to not to Utica, to Herkimer, it's so uninterrupted that your mind goes in you enter a different world. You're just pedaling. You just become pedaling. And it's this wonderful kind of meditative state, I found, until you get really, really tired. But in the beginning, it's kind of wonderful. And
until you start hemorrhaging. But it's really meditative up to that point.
Out of your ears. Jim, I'm bleeding from my knees. No. So we're biking along, and I notice it's just so pretty. And so I bring my phone up, and I hold it at like chest level, and I start shooting video with my phone of the path in front of me as I'm biking. And I realize I know the song Wheel from the album Utopia Revisited, which is an album I recorded with Kurt Unala, who we interviewed, recorded it in Iceland. We did a whole series of episodes on that. But the song Wheel is the last song. And it's like the most like my other songs. So it's the one that most people have liked. And I thought, how long is that song? I thought it must be like 4 minutes long. It turns out it's like close to 5. So I managed to hold up the phone for like more than 5 minutes, and I got a 5-minute uninterrupted shot of just going down the bike path on a bike. You don't see the bike, you don't see my shadow, you don't see me. The sun is sort of setting, so there's a lens flare the entire time. Leaves are blowing across. At one point, there's some kind of insect that flies across. But it's uninterrupted, and you don't see any houses, you don't see any cars, and you don't see any people. So it's just the path and foliage. And then I synced up the music, and I added the lyrics. I did the animation for the lyrics myself. I didn't use AI for that. And I posted it. So that's on our Patreon. That's on patreon.com/Jim Infantino, where you can support this and all my other stuff. Lionel doesn't have a Patreon.
Me?
Maybe we should get a dedicated Patreon for the podcast at some point.
Oh, for the podcast. I don't need
because
a Patreon.
it's mixed in with all my other.
Okay.
But hey, you join it for the podcast, and then you get a few other things that I'm.
What I found fascinating when I watched that video today, it's really it's really interesting because it's almost like a palate cleanser.
Mm-hmm.
Because nothing's happening.
Yeah.
But it's completely organic. It's not being computer generated. And it's not looping. It's a true 5-minute real-time bike. And it's just strange that you go down a road that looks like you're going nowhere. I mean, you're definitely going, but nothing ever changes. I think we joked about this on the path. Heaven is a place where nothing ever happens. And on the Empire Trail, baby, nothing ever happens because it is flat as a strap. And it's a really good trail because there's houses every now and then. And there's long stretches, like 4-mile stretches, 7-mile stretches where it'd be impossible for you to tell exactly where you are on the trail at that particular time because it looks exactly identical like the next 1/4-mile segment of the trail and the one after that and the one after that.
Yep.
And there's something interesting about that because when you look at this video, you're like, it's got to be it's got to be a loop.
Right, it's got to be
a loop.
It's AI. Yeah.
Or it's a loop because it keeps doing the same thing over and over again.
You don't see any people or any roads
or
any
cars or houses or anything. It looks like a child's drawing. You draw a horizontal line across the middle of the page, and then you draw 2 lines coming down, which is the road. Then you draw a bunch of trees by the side. You put the sun in the sky. It's almost like a child's drawing. It's almost like a child's dream. Because it has the simplest elements. It has the 2 lines indicating the road. It has the horizon. It has the trees. It has the sun in the sky with some clouds. That's it. And it never changes. And as you bike down, that road, that pyramid of the road lines never changes. And the horizon never changes. And the sun never changes. And the clouds, they're moving too slowly. So the only thing that changes are these bushes and trees by the side of the road, but they all look the same.
Yeah.
Anyway, people listening to this are like scratching their heads like, why am I investing time listening to this podcast?
No, it is. I mean, I knew once I got that shot, I knew it was going to be interesting because at any moment somebody could have been biking toward me and that wouldn't have been usable. It has to be an isolated piece of trail for the idea to work. And when I got it, I knew that it would. I think the one that you saw is in wide format. The tall format's a little better because that road is longer. It's how I shot it originally, but I don't I think on YouTube it's wide format, and then on Threads I put it up as tall format, and on Patreon, patreon.com/Jim Infantino, I put both formats up. People said they liked the tall format better, but also commented I usually hate tall formatted videos, but in this case it actually seems to work better. So yeah.
So how we get the
we got on this because we were talking about the bike trip.
And why are we talking about the bike trip?
Just the nature of the Empire Trail. That at least in this part of the Empire Trail is very, very quiet.
Yeah.
And very like nothing. Very just plain long stretches of just pedaling, which ultimately became problematic. So I thought 40 miles a day was going to be easy for me and would be hard but attainable for Lionel, who's been biking less than I have. It turns out it was not easy for me. It was not easy for either of us. At the end of the first day, we stopped at this. The way to getting up the hill to get to the motel was just the most painful thing ever. That was just felt like I was going to die. And then, and then I just crashed out. And then we got up and did it again the next morning. And we had breakfast at the Kanajahari diner called the Keep Right Cafe. And that was delightful.
Actually, my breakfast was the pizza from the night before. But we went to the Kanajahari
some coffee.
Keep Right Coffee, which is a lovely place. Maybe we could do a whole episode.
Yeah, the owner, and we talked with the owner probably for an hour.
At least an hour.
It was really great. Delightful place, and we can talk about it more, but the Keep Right Cafe has to do with this dummy light, which is like the early form of traffic light when they started transitioning away from policemen directing traffic on all the corners.
Like 1910, 1915, something like that. Like up until that point, policemen were directing traffic, or people were just running into each other.
And then they said green lights.
They didn't know green, red, yellow, and somebody came with green, red, yellow, and because it was the beginning, they said, "Oh, we'll just put it on a big stanchion in the middle of the road. It looks like a buoy."
Yeah.
And we'll just stick it in the middle of the road. They hadn't invented the idea of hanging it from a wire across the intersection. They just put something in the middle of the intersection and said, "Hey, keep right."
They made something like man-sized,
Yeah, like a buoy.
Than a man, but yeah,
it looks like a big harbor buoy. And then, of course, people ran them over or ran into them and stuff like that. And there's only 3 left, and one of them is in Kanajahari. And it's become sort of a civic pride to keep this, this famous, this last remaining specimen of a very sort of interim technology from like 1917 or 1920. So that's where
it's actually not out there. It was hit by a truck some months back or years back, and
it's being repaired. So that's where the name of the cafe came from. But the cafe was great because, you're in these towns. I mean, I don't know the official number for the population of Kanajahari, but, you're talking about low thousands at best. Mm-hmm. And you walk into a place where there's a widescreen TV showing, works by Monet and Caravaggio. And the coffee's great, and the music's great, and there's a couch, and there's board games, and it just feels great. It felt wonderful. The conversation was fabulous, and you could tell it was just somebody plowing the field. It was the work of this woman who wanted to, do this. And create a place of beauty and a welcoming place where people could feel good and stuff like that. It's just great. It felt, and honestly, I could have stayed there all day.
Well, we kind of wanted to because we knew what was ahead of us. We knew what was waiting for us back on the trail utter exhaustion by the end of the day.
Right.
But there is something different. It does feel different. The difference between driving into a new place like that, and meeting some people, and biking in and biking out. You're under your own power. You're carrying everything you're going to need for the day. You're carrying your own water. It's different. It's a little bit closer to that, coming in on a horse with your bedroll. It had a very different feeling. Got back.
You're
walked
more
back out to the
appreciative.
lot. Yeah.
It's more of a farewell when you leave.
Yeah. Here we go.
That's it. That's the end of civilization.
That's right. And then it's just the trail.
Right.
And then we made it to
Little Falls.
Little Falls.
And that's where I called it quits.
Yeah. Which I don't blame you. Totally. I mean, it is a slight uphill. And I think that just starts to grate on you. But also, I think I had done more, 10 and 20 mile
Oh, yeah.
rides.
No. You're in much better shape than I am, and you've biked a lot more. No. I just said, look, I don't enjoy this anymore.
But luckily, it wasn't that far. Luckily, we could make it to civilization because where we had planned to stop in Herkimer, New York, there was no way to actually get to it. It was this huge bridge. Like we would have had to go way up a giant hill in order to get to the bridge to take us to Herkimer. And then I think it was pretty far off the trail. So Little Falls was very doable, and they were having a cheese fest. And we stopped at a great cafe. There was like a diner there called
That
Place
little
on
place.
Main.
That place on Main. Yeah. Or something like that. Yeah. It's fun. It's a great day. Everybody's around. A lot of biz. People in the streets, stalls in the streets, 80 stalls, people selling. And there's a country. I never knew what their name was. I listened to both their sets because I hung out there while poor Jim went and cycled all the way back to Utica and got my car and drove back and picked my ass up. But it was actually a great afternoon. It really was. Just sitting there and listening to people playing stuff. It was a great time.
I really liked that bluegrass band. They were great. What was I forget what they were playing when I left. It was one of the big traditionals, like I ain't got a home in this world anymore or something. But it sounded great. Yeah, it was a real street fair. So I got to drop you off at a street fair. Could have been worse, right?
Could have been a lot worse.
For me, though, it got a lot worse. So from there,
let's hear it.
I had to go to Utica, and man, like the road that
from Little Falls to Utica,
trail,
yeah,
it was like once you get past Herkimer, things go downhill badly. Like you get to Ilion, New York, and then it's just the trail disappears, and you're on a 55-mile-an-hour highway with no shoulder and plants like growing in from the side, like negative shoulder and pushing you into traffic. And then you end up in like kind of the butt end of Utica. It was not a pleasant bike. And I had a headwind the whole way. And I realized next time we do this, I need to have 2 water bottles on me at all times. But I made it to your car. Like a dying person, in the desert. Drove back, picked you up, and then those 2, like whatever they were, like 19-ounce tall boy beers that I bought just tasted so damn good that night.
Yeah,
really good.
That's why people like biking a lot because at the end of the day, it's beer and ice cream.
Oh yeah,
it's beer and ice cream.
Yeah, yeah. I'd do it again. I would do it again. It's a lot of fun. I mean, be better prepared.
Yeah, so for our listeners who are, of course, scribbling down right now exactly how they can recreate this wonderful experience that Jim and I shared in, it's the Empire Trail. And actually, the Empire Trail, I think, technically is 2 trails. It's one big one that goes east-west across New York State, and the one that goes north-south, goes all the way down to New York City. We're doing the east-west trail between Utica and Schenectady. And the reason why I picked that is because it's the largest chunk of the trail that doesn't share the road with cars, and it's not gravel. It's paved, but it's isolated. I was hoping that the fall colors would be a little better. I think we went a little early. I think actually next week, I think really it's mid-October is when you want to go on the trail. Earliest is like October 15, maybe even a little bit later, depending on the weather conditions. Because when we drove down it, there's a little yellow here and a little red there, but it wasn't anything terribly exciting. The other thing I suggest to people is that the towns are really cool. Like when you look at them on the map, you're like, man, there's nothing going on in these freaking towns.
Yeah,
like there's nothing
even
there.
Google Maps, like zoom in or street view, it doesn't do them justice.
It doesn't. There's things going on in these towns.
Yeah.
There are people making things happen in these towns. There's something worth visiting in each one of these towns. And it's a blast. But don't underestimate the fact that biking on a flat, straight road for 40 miles is really freaking exhausting. Like, it's better to have a couple of little hills every now and then. Yeah, you have to, it hurts to pump and get up to the top of that hill, but then you get to coast for, 60 seconds. And that makes a huge difference. And by the way, go from west to east. Don't go from east to west like we did.
Yeah, and I would say start in Herkimer and then go to Schenectady. That stretch is pretty beautiful the whole way.
Yeah.
Herkimer to Utica is an utter disaster and shouldn't even be listed as a trail. Like, you just don't put people on a 55-mile-an-hour highway with no shoulder and call it a bike lane. It's not. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It is not. And it's dangerous. So, yeah.
The other good thing I learned. The other good thing I learned is that Amtrak. If you check the Amtrak trains, the Amtrak trains, you can take your bike on the train. Not all trains. You have to look. Yeah. There's a little icon, but a lot of them do. So you can throw your bike on the train. I suggest you do exactly what they say, which is take off the front wheel of the bike before you even try to get the. Well, I retract that statement. But the conductor is your friend. Be nice to the conductor. Slip the conductor a 20. And they'll help you, and you can take your bike and put it in a good place, and they'll help you find a seat and all that kind of stuff. It actually worked out really, really well because in Utica, there's free parking. And I was like, okay, how long can I park here? Forever. Okay, what do I pay? Nothing. I was like, wow, I guess this is, Rust Belt. I mean, and I did. And I parked in the Utica train station. Parked it right there, and I met up with the police officer who had a little desk there in this magnificent, enormous train station. We had a great time because I'm old and he was old, and I came in there and he was sitting there reading his newspaper. I said, "Hey, can you tell me a good place to get a cup of coffee?" And that was the last thing I ever said to him because he launched in and he was talking about how his wife has, all these coffee cups and how they get a subscription from the store. And he was just, he just went on and on and on and on. And it was fabulous. It felt really welcoming. These people are ambassadors. And he was a great ambassador. He says, "Yeah, you want to go down the street, take a left, go down there. It's Utica Coffee Company. It's just underneath the bridge past there." He says, "My wife and I have a subscription to it. We get 3 bags a month and stuff like that." And he was great. And he it's amazing how one person can change the world, just like the lady who runs the Keep Right Cafe in Kanajahari, just like, I can't really pronounce his name. I think it's Uliniak. I think it was Ulyniak, Officer Uliniak in Utica. They light up the world. And you all of a sudden you have a feeling of place. You have a story. You can see him, you can see his wife, and you can see what's going on. He's telling you what's going on here and going on there, and it was a great time. That was a lot of fun in Utica. So I suggest the Amtrak thing is really good to bring your bike. The Empire Trail is really good, but it is deserted. The trail,
yeah,
it is flat.
There's no decent plan B. I would estimate your mileage carefully. because there definitely were situations where, like, if we had to stop here and we couldn't go any further, I'm not really sure how we'd get anywhere before nightfall.
Right. So if
no,
you're
like,
if you're
emergency, there's no Quint like rushing to your rescue
right
on the bike.
So you need to bring a lot of money, because if you really need to do that, you're going to be paying money.
Yeah.
Serious money. But if you're comfortable doing 40 miles a day, you might want to book 30 miles a day. And if you're comfortable, and if 30 is when you start feeling bad, you might want to book 25. Because it's strange how just keeping your legs moving up and down, which is what you have to do on a flat surface, can get really tiring. And I've heard this from other cyclists. They prefer hills.
Mm-hmm.
They prefer hills. They don't want the Pyrenees in the Tour de France, but they want hills because it breaks things up a bit. So anyway, it's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great. I really do want to. I really want to do the rematch.
Yeah.
But not that section, another section. Maybe take a look at the
scout
Buffalo
out
or
a different
Rochester.
section,
Yeah, maybe closer. And I read something today about Toronto. The New York Times had an article about the ravines in Toronto.
Oh, cool.
And how in Toronto, in the city, they managed to preserve a lot of these like natural brooks. It reminds me of like the Riverwalk in San Antonio. They preserved all these brooks and all these sort of natural ravines in the city. And they're right there. If you know where they are, you can walk down to them. They're very well hidden. And I was like, boy, it'd be really great if I could ever get to Toronto. And I was like, hey, I live in Syracuse. Toronto's right over there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's closer. It's about as far from me as Boston is, if not closer. So I'm thinking about checking that out and doing that little trip.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
I'm up for. There are a number of different. There's that other canal that goes from DC to Pittsburgh.
The Yakagani.
Yeah.
I'd
be up
I
for
think it's
that.
the Chesapeake in Ohio. That's the one I did. That's really remote though. I mean, that goes past. Yeah, it's Confluence, PA. It's the Paw Paw Tunnel in West Virginia. It goes through West Virginia.
Yeah, of course.
And I can dig up all the. If I remember, I'll dig up the emails. I'll send them to you. But it's the bike tour is known as the Yakagani. Well, actually, the bike tour is called the Yokotomac, which is a glissando or a portmanteau.
Mm-hmm.
This is such an erudite.
Right, of course.
This is such an erudite podcast. It's a portmanteau of the Potomac and the Yakagani rivers. And it doesn't go all the way to Pittsburgh. You have to take a train at one point, because at one point the grade gets really vicious. But there's actually a train, an old-fashioned train that's run as sort of like a tourist attraction. You can throw your bikes on that train. It takes you like the 40 miles that you can't bike. So
Interesting.
What else we got? Or have we worn out our welcome?
I don't know if we have. We watched two different movies while we were recovering at your place in Syracuse. In Bruges, which is one of my favorites, and Mystery Men.
Mystery Men is fascinating to me.
Yeah. Tell me why. I thought you would like In Bruges more than Mystery Men, but
In Bruges, no, because I'm sort of sick and tired of the Hitman film.
mm-hmm.
I really am. Like, I'm sick and tired of the post-apocalyptic film.
Right.
I'm sick and tired of the Hitman film, because there's 6 million of them. I'm burnt out on CIA films. I'm burnt out on MI6. I'm burnt out on contract killers and money launderers and people who make crystal meth in bathtubs. I'm just kind of like, I just tired of it. Mystery Men was fascinating because, for many reasons, it sort of encapsulates an era that I grew up in. I didn't really grow up in, but this is part of my 20s and 30s, which was that whole early 80s and 90s thing that was, it was Beetlejuice. It was Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah.
And to a certain degree, it was Raising Arizona. It was sort of this cartoonish, overblown, bigger than life, sort of like a child's view, but it's very 80s with sort of oversized clothing, and very theatrical. Almost, it just has its own vibe. And the interesting thing about Mystery Men is that, yeah, that film would have collapsed under its own weight within 15 seconds if it wasn't for. They're very similar movies. In Bruges and Mystery Men were very similar because they were just great actors. And great. I mean, Janet Garofalo, she was fabulous.
Janine Garofalo.
It's Janine. Is that how you pronounce
Garofalo,
it?
Yeah.
Fabulous.
She made it. She was so good.
She was so
bowler.
good.
Carmine the Bowler.
And Carmine the Bowler. The great thing is that, to a certain degree, it's actually this very simple sort of concrete instantiation of metaphors, which is that, you know, her father is a bowling ball that she carries around with her, literally and metaphorically.
He's a weight, right?
She carries him around, and the best thing is when she does something, when she finally scores and kills the villain. She says, "Okay, I'll go to graduate school." That was the bowling ball kills the guy, which is her dead father.
That he was.
She says, "Okay, you held up your end of the deal. I'll go to graduate school." I thought that was the funniest thing on the entire planet. And it's great because it's a lot of it. It's a very explicit. I don't know. Just watch it. It's a fun movie to a certain degree. It's also kind of slow and a little not cringe-inducing, but you're just like, we watched this back in the day, but then you sort of soften towards it, and you're like, it's fine. It's fun. I can live with this.
I think of it as a very, very underrated film. It sort of came and went. It has, you know, all of the, like a lot of the greatest comedians of the time. They literally took a bunch of comedians, like Ben Stiller and Janine Garofalo probably just went and hired a bunch of different comedians that they loved. And you'll see them. A lot of them got, like in the superhero tryouts, a lot of them are there.
Who was the ballet guy?
Oh, I don't know who.
Right.
But Jay, there's a guy who had a long stint, really, really famous for a while. But before he was famous, he was one of the superheroes trying out. And I forgot what his superpower was. I loved Captain Furious because his superpower was he just got really angry.
But he never did anything.
But he couldn't do anything with his anger. He just got angry.
Right. Yeah. It's a good film. It's a really good film. And to a certain strange way, now that I think about it, it's a lot like The Fifth Element. The Fifth Element has that cartoony vibe. It's very much, and I guess it's not a cartoony vibe, it's a comic book vibe because it was based upon the comic book. And so you have that comic book sensibility in it where the costumes are over the top, and it was good. I actually say I might want to watch a second time.
Yeah, that is definitely, it's a cult. It's a good candidate for a cult movie.
Have your kids watched it?
No, but they would love it. It's their kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah. And whoever played Sphinx was very, very funny. My God.
Oh, that's Wes Studi.
Oh, okay. He was really
and at some point we have to watch Michael Mann's Last of the Mohicans, where he plays a completely He's like that guy from No Country for Old Men.
Oh yeah, Javier Bardem.
He's like that. He's a homicidal maniac and very, very, very. Very frightening.
Well, we have. I just finished. I'm starting to worry about this big black box of doom by Jason Pargin. That was a book I was looking forward to. It came out just a couple of weeks ago. And then we have a book that we're going to be reading and discussing with Julia and Sarah coming up. I've forgotten the name of the book, something November. And next week we have Eric Schwartz. Yeah. And I said it's up to him whether he wants to do video or just audio. So I think we have to give, in kindness to our guests, we need to either warn them ahead of time or we need to give them the option to just do audio. So where we can, we will be posting video, and it will be in the Big Ego, Jim's Big Ego section, podcast section on YouTube. I will make sure there's a link from the website where you can go watch the video. And the
Cool.
website is funnynotfunny.bigego.com or funnynotfunnypodcast.com or funnynotfunny.net. I got a new domain name. I don't know. One of them will become the dominant URLs for our website.
Dominant.
Yeah.
Cool.
I was fascinated.
Till next week.
Till next week. This is Jim and Fazito
Signing out.
Funny Not Funny is produced by Jim Infantino at Slab Media in Boston. Lionel Casson is the co-host. Our website is funnynotfunny.bigego.com. The background music you're listening to is the song Hum from Utopia Revisited by Jim Infantino. The opinions presented by the co-hosts are ridiculous and should not be taken seriously by anyone. Our intended audience is literally nobody. If you're listening to this podcast, you should stop immediately and seek help. Please do not subscribe or leave a rating or review. It only encourages us to make more. Thanks for listening.